no response from the audience. I think I better talk a bit more about what's really happening in Malaysia. But really, seeing not only the many uncertainties of our rapidly changing world, but also the incredible potential that each of you, youth in the audience, holds to shape it. So like many of you, my children are growing up in a time when the world sits in the palm of their hands. Right? Every day, I am reminded of their enthusiasm for learning, how they eagerly scroll through videos or science experiments, or when they share their finds on educational apps. So as a father, just like your parents, I want the best for my children. But as a father, I also worry, right? Reality often paints a very different picture to the hopes and aspirations of those living in it. So we have all seen news about climate change, political unrest, and economic uncertainty. So I wonder sometimes whether will my children have opportunities in the future? Will they have a place in a rapidly changing global landscape? So is there a growing disconnect between our dreams, our hopes, our aspirations against the realities of the world that we live in today? So this sense of uncertainty is not unique for me or to your parents. You yourself surely must have felt the same sense of uncertainty. So you work hard through school, through universities, you graduated with honors and landed your first job in a promising company or a tech hub, or perhaps an established company. But in an uncertain world, it is only normal that you wonder, where do you fit into all this, right? But here's the good news. You, the youth, are exactly what Malaysia needs to navigate and thrive in these challenging times and changing times as well. And if you don't just fit in the future, you have the power to shape the future. So I would like to briefly touch on this year's theme of the YEF, which is the second economic takeoff, Malaysia's path to the new economy. So I'm glad, telling the organizers, I'm glad that the conference agenda touched on topics such as transitioning towards the green economy, the digital economy, AI, and then creating a robust talent ecosystem as well. So this also reflects the current themes that our team in MITI are seriously working on. I'm glad that you also focus on both the National Energy Transition Roadmap as well as the National Industrial Master Plan, because together with other ministries is really a whole-of-nation approach, apart from a whole-of-government approach, where we will work closely with the industry, the civil society, and even investors. So we recognize that the world is changing, and the world is changing at a great speed. And at the same time, the world is also becoming multipolar, right? It is not just artificial intelligence, the push for sustainable resolutions, redesigned supply chains, and industrial transformation that are reshaping the global economy. So in many cases, global geopolitics is overlaid across all these shifts. So these shifts may feel daunting, but it will also represent unprecedented opportunities for you, the next generation. So today, allow me to talk of 3 key points and how all of this will potentially impact decisions made by today's youth, so all of you who are sitting here today, towards your professional future. First, on how the global tech war and geopolitics are presenting specific tech opportunities for Malaysia. Second, on how Malaysia can deftly use its middle power position, we can call it industrial diplomacy, right, to play a more prominent role in ensuring supply chain security for specific products and industries globally. And third, why our industrial reforms are the way to go in ensuring the first 2 points while engineering Malaysia's second economic takeoff and inclusive growth. So on the first point, let me begin a bit and share with you a bit of history. I'm sure all of you are aware that post-COVID-19 challenges such as geopolitical, especially global geopolitical rivalry, there's accelerating digitalization and climate change have made the global economy more complex, right? We see the escalating US-China tensions. These have caused competing supply chains to be established as both countries' efforts to decouple from each other's economies reshape the dynamics of both international trade and investments. So for Malaysia, we are trying to navigate this turbulent terrain. Understanding the global tech ecosystem has been crucial in positioning Malaysia as a preferred investment destination, particularly for semiconductors. So consequently, investors are diversifying across regions and sectors as security concerns and over-reliance have led both economies and their regional partners to invest more in separate rival tech supply chains. So in terms of reaping such opportunities for Malaysia, our Prime Minister recently launched the National Semiconductor Strategy that was in May this year. And this is actually a sub-policy of the new Industrial Master Plan. And this strategy, the National Semiconductor Strategy, looks to attract 500 billion ringgit of investments and produce 60,000 engineers within the next 5 to 7 years. So for you sitting here, be aware that this is where the job opportunities are in the immediate and the medium-term future. So that brings me to my second point, which is on how Malaysia, as a middle power, can play its role in global supply chain security. So the US-China standoff presents opportunities for Malaysia, particularly via our E&E and renewable energy sectors. And at the heart of today's tech Cold War lies a battle over the semiconductor supply chain. And Malaysia's 50-year-old semiconductor sector places us in an excellent position to reap such opportunities. So I've already mentioned just now the National Semiconductor Strategy, which aims to move our semiconductor producers up the global value chain for us to export more high-value products. So on that score, we have already welcomed global investors. I think you heard many of those that we have announced. We have Infineon, we have Texas Instruments, who have increased their investments in Malaysia. This is also due to our agile tech supply chain. Further, our technology continues to evolve. Investors are also considering the transformative potential of emerging technologies, for example, generative AI. To that end, Malaysia is also actively courting investments in related assets such as robotics, AI-powered logistics, suppliers, industrial real estate, in short, hardware, software, and application across the entire AI ecosystem to help global investors mitigate risks. So analysts have estimated that government initiatives such as the US CHIPS Act may inject roughly $100 billion into the semiconductor industry across the US, Europe, and Asia. So Malaysia, we have the industrial capacity, the track record, and the rule of law to successfully reap that opportunity. So Malaysia actually can truly become a middle power broker to support the security of the global tech supply chain. So to that end, the National Semiconductor Strategy has earmarked over 25 billion ringgit over the next decade to strengthen and upscale Malaysia's semiconductor sector through talent development, targeted initiatives for local companies, and incentives to promote investments in high-value sectors. So what this means is higher skilled and better paying jobs for you and the STEM students sitting here today, and also the non-STEM students. This is as part of the overall Madani economy framework to ensure better broad-based growth and a more equitable sharing of the nation's wealth. So, to all of you today, this brings me to my final point, which I mentioned just now, the third point, which is ensuring economic inclusivity and security for all. The Industrial Master Plan also emphasizes on sustainable and inclusive growth, but capacity building is key. This is why we also recently launched the Green Investment Strategy. This is to complement our Industrial Master Plan. We have the net zero target under our mission number 3 and the National Energy transition roadmap. And last year, we also launched the National Industry ESG framework, and last month, we launched the Circular Economy Policy Framework for the manufacturing sector. So all this reflects our strong recognition that industrial policies can and must assume a new role due to climate risk and to accelerate Malaysia's transition to a low-carbon economy. So the Green Investment Strategy, for example, drives the innovation and investments needed to achieve a just energy transition, ensuring that our climate commitments are met while protecting the well-being of our workers affected through the creation of new job opportunities and reskilling. Indeed, if you look at the last 20 months or so, we have attracted many renowned multinational companies, investors, for example, from Middle East. They have committed about 10 gigawatt of RE projects across Malaysia. We have also recently launched our Green Industrial Park in Kigip. For example, this is a green industrial hub for high-quality sectors such as electronics, semiconductors, and logistics, and powered primarily by renewable energy. So back to the Green Investment Strategy, we are also looking into various initiatives to mobilize capital towards advancing circular economy. We want to mitigate climate change, adaptation of strategies, and sustainable mobility in our industries. Again, the job opportunities are here, particularly when you talk about Green Investment Strategy. We aim to create 350,000 additional jobs, and mainly high-skilled jobs in these green sectors. So this means your future can be both promising and environmentally conscious. So ladies and gentlemen, just to remind all of you, next year we will be the chairman of ASEAN, a role that offers an exciting vision of shared growth and unity. And as you all know, there's 680 million people in ASEAN. Half of them, nearly 50%, are below the age of 30. And ASEAN's demographic dividend is set to drive growth. So we have a young, dynamic population, including everyone here today, of course. We have the energy, the creativity and drive. These all are needed to push ASEAN towards a resilient, sustainable and inclusive future. So in short, all of you can make a difference in strengthening ASEAN's future role in the new global order. And in our role as ASEAN Chair, we will also champion the digital economy through the upcoming ASEAN Digital Economy Framework Agreement, the DEFA. So if realized, it could add up to $2 trillion of ASEAN's digital economy, creating again high quality jobs for ASEAN's youth, especially in future-proof industries like generative AI, data centers, and cybersecurity. So closer to home, I've mentioned a few touch points that show our industrial reform. I mentioned the Industrial Master Plan. It's also a blueprint for your future, particularly in terms of creating high-skilled jobs in globally important sectors. I mentioned already semiconductors, robotics, AI, sustainable energy. So we are investing not just in businesses, but also in you, right? The talented and ambitious young people who will lead these industries, to ensure that these opportunities are accessible to all Malaysians, especially our youth. The government is rolling out a number of initiatives to upskill and reskill our workforce. We have just heard the budget announcement by our Prime Minister. Programs like Kazana K-Youth Program, they will train 11,000 local talents in critical sectors like semiconductors and E&E. And then you have universities like UITM, USM are receiving funds to train young Malaysians in AI application and engineering, ensuring that everyone has access to these opportunities. We are also ensuring that youth from rural areas are not left behind. And HRD Corp, for example, they have a 3 billion ringgit fund that will provide 3 million training opportunities focusing on the industries for tomorrow. And we have the Skills Development Fund Corporation, or PTPK, that's about 500 million ringgit, will finance training for more than 20,000 trainees in high growth sectors. So this means that wherever you are from, whether you are in the heart of Kuala Lumpur or small town, you will have access to these life-changing opportunities. So this is your time. You have the opportunities, the tools, the enablers, and the drive to thrive in this new economy. The government's role is to help you to succeed, but it's your role to step up and take ownership of Malaysia's future. Whether it's through innovation in AI, entrepreneurship in green technology, or leadership in advanced manufacturing, you are the ones who will shape the Malaysia of tomorrow. So I also understand that some of you may feel disconnected from the political process, right? But I want to remind you, your voice matters. The policies we are implementing today, like the Industrial Master Plan and our focus on talent development, are not just about today. Yeah, they are about your future. Political stability ensures that these long-term plans continue without interruption, and your participation, whether through platforms like the Youth Economic Forum or just making your voice heard in elections, ensures that we are building a future that reflects your needs and your aspirations. So on that note, I'm pleased to hear that YEF has put forward 10 resolutions following its closed-door policy roundtable discussion on 4th October, and then it was reduced to 5, I think after the discussion with the Honourable Minister of Higher Education, Dr. Zamri. And this resolution focused on 3 pillars. That's still the same, roughly. I think I saw 5 just now, 3, yes. But really, to me, this is a commendable effort that goes a long way to complement efforts by the government and reflects a whole of society approach to nation building. So in closing, I want to remind you that the new economy we are building is not just for you, it's with you. Right? We are laying the foundation for an economy that is resilient, economy that's competitive, economy that's inclusive, and driven by technology, sustainability, and innovation. So this is your opportunity to shape the Malaysia of tomorrow. As the saying goes, nothing worth having comes easy. So the journey ahead will not be without its challenges, but it is in overcoming these obstacles that we will achieve something truly great. Together, I think we can transform these challenges into opportunities and build a Malaysia that thrives for generations to come. So I want to commend the Perdana Fellows Alumni Association for organizing this Youth Economic Forum. I was made to understand it started in 2016. Yes, well done. And I see youth from many different backgrounds here today, from high schools, mahasiswa, of course, young professionals. And platforms like this empower young Malaysians to take an active role in shaping the policies that will determine our shared future and to build a more prosperous and sustainable Malaysia for generations to come. So thank you. Sekian. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Datuk Seri, for such an insightful and informative session. Now, before we move on to the floor, as a journalist myself, I can't help but ask more questions to gain your perspective and further knowledge. I would like to say there's also a mic there for you to walk around if you like to. Datuk Seri, we talked a lot about this shift.
Hello? Sorry, you're asking a question or they are?
Yes, I'm asking a question first.
Why are you
Part of my job, by the way. I'm a journalist myself.
Yes, Astro.
Yes. Right, Datuk Seri. We've talked a lot about this shift to the new economy. We have cutting-edge technology and high-growth industries, for example. But how can young professionals such as myself and half of the audience here right now take advantage of Industry 4.0, especially with regards to some of the plans that the government have with 9MP, for example? So how can we take full advantage of what the government is putting out there, especially when we tease?
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, I mentioned in my remarks just now, we have various policies in place. Of course, the one that I mentioned, in particular, 2 of the major policies that was announced under the Madani government is the Industrial Master Plan, the National Industrial Master Plan 2030, as well as the National Energy Transition Roadmap. Of course, we have the 12 Malaysia Plan. We are nearly towards the end of that. And we have drafted many other policies, but at the end of the day, it's about execution,
right? So how do we execute this well? Again, because we don't execute this well, there's no opportunities for the youth to participate. This is where I think one of the key things that we need to focus on is to ensure that we get the involvement of the youth, because this is a long-term plan. It's 2030, 2040, 2050. So the youth have to start today to join the plans that we have, and it is a whole-of-nation approach where, of course, the government will definitely have to coordinate well within the government ecosystem, but at the same time invite companies to participate in this growth, because it has to be a public-private partnership where we will then give opportunities for the young, for the future of our country to be participating in not just the employment, but also in the decisions that are being made. So for green and digital, I think these are the two major themes of today. We need to be prepared. We are talking to, when we talk about the National Semiconductor Strategy, for example, we need people not just from STEM, but we need management, we need people in leadership position, we need people in finance, we need people in marketing, etc. So it is the whole ecosystem, or the whole, when we look at talent pool, it's not just specifically related to certain sectors. So you cut across. But what we're seeing is that the enablers are key two verticals, which is, one is green, one is digital. And for the youth, I think it's important that no matter from what background you are in today, in terms of your skill set, and no matter what industries you are in today, you need to continue to embrace technology, because this will be key enabler to any jobs that we're going to focus on in our various plans.
Right, Datuk Seri. It's not every day that we have the head of NITI here to answer some of the youth's concern. And especially with regards to employment, we have had the floor just now, some of the youth sharing their concerns about underemployment, unemployment, mismatch of skills, mismatch of jobs. So they are very worried youths today that are concerned when it comes to having sustainable or meaningful jobs. So with our focus today on green economy as well as digital economy, what steps is MITI taking to ensure that this green economy or digital economy that we're heading towards are creating sustainable and meaningful jobs for our graduates, especially with regards to youth in rural areas with probably little to no access?
Well, the jobs today, I must admit, when I first came back from university, that time was a bit more different. I think it's less challenging than what you guys are facing. I graduated, I think, in 1996, not that long ago. Most of you probably not born yet, some of you anyway. But my point is, the world is changing at the pace that is different from where it was. Yes, it's changing. It's at an accelerated pace. So things that you can't even think of what the job of the future will be. If you look at the classified ads, some of the jobs that 2 years ago they was not even advertised. Right now, suddenly there's job there. So it's important that we look at ensuring that, especially all of you here, continue to know what the trends are going to be and equip yourself with the right skill sets and be agile and be dynamic in your approach towards jobs. For governments, for policymakers, I think it's important that we look at ensuring, you mentioned the word underemployment just now, it's important that we continue to attract companies, to attract business and investors to invest, to increase the economic complexity of our industries, because that's the only way. Because we are losing talent because sometimes they go and work in a company, and as they advance in their knowledge, the company then does not offer them the right kind of experience or exposure that the same company probably have an operation in Singapore or Hong Kong or even US. So they then migrate or they move away move to the countries to get better jobs. So we need to create the right jobs as well, and that's why I think for us, if you look at the Industrial Master Plan, for example, we have 4 missions. Mission number 1 is to increase economic complexity, is also to address the job opportunities. Because if we attract the right investment, the right businesses, then the job opportunity will come. Of course, the higher the economic complexity, the higher the value add
the more complex the jobs, the more sophisticated and the more opportunities, the higher the pay as well. Right? So these are what we are, as government, we need to continue to focus on. Companies, of course, they need to also move up the value chain. They need to embrace 4IR, they need to ensure that they increase productivity so that the youth, or for Malaysian youth, they can then have the right kind of jobs that they are qualified for. Right? Sometimes they are trained for something much bigger, but the job opportunities are not there. So for rural or urban, I think for Malaysia, I mean, the digital divide is going to be key, right? How do we address the digital divide between the urban areas and poor areas in terms of even basic, last time we talked about utilities infrastructure, now you talk about telecommunication infrastructure. You know, we cannot emphasize how important it is that we need to ensure that we level the playing field, especially when it comes to digital exposure to the digital infrastructure. And I think this morning, if I'm not mistaken, YB Gobin has spoken a bit about ensuring that we have as much as possible a level playing field for all Malaysians, regardless of where they are located. So I think that's important basic need, but of course, when it comes to opportunities, we are blind towards regions or cities or rural areas, but first we need to ensure that we have a level playing field so that everyone starts to have the same experience, the same learning when they first get exposed to digital technologies.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Seri, for answering my questions and for giving us the assurance that the government is looking at youth as a very special segment that will contribute to the digital economy and the green economy as well, and the investment that goes into that. So right, now I will open the floor to the curious audience for more queries. I would like to open the floor for questions now. So if I can go to mic number 1 for the first gentleman over there.
Hello.
Mic number 1.
Right, good morning, Dr. Seri.
Good
evening,
good
Dr.
afternoon.
Seri. My name is Kelvin. I'm from Seri University. And my question is, digitalization and automation is really crucial for better efficiency. We put so much emphasis on E&E, but does that mean we have to forego the existing agricultural economy? For instance, exporting palm oil and focus more on data centers. Perhaps we have automation in the agricultural sector, but does automation of our agricultural sector even matter if, regardless of the efficiency of production, some foreign countries deem our product as environmentally unsustainable? And also, how can Malaysia navigate through the current global market where sustainability is pretext to global trade and certain countries with its double standards in sustainability?
Okay, well, there are many questions in one. So let me just give you the landscape first, the economic landscape. You mentioned about manufacturing, about agriculture. So Malaysia as a country, we are very much an open economy. I think those of you who learn economics, who learn about trade, Malaysia trade to GDP today is about 130%. So we are very much an open economy. So what do we export? 80% of our export comes from the manufacturing sector, and 20% comes from the agriculture sector. And out of that 80%, half or 40% of our total exports, or 50% of our total manufacturing export, is from the E&E sector. So it shows how the country has evolved. The service sector is, of course, still the major contributor to GDP, but when it comes to exports, agriculture is only 20%. And when you talk about agriculture, you mentioned palm oil, etc. Of course, there's a lot of debate out there about the sustainability of palm oil. There's various standards. We have the MSPO. Of course, there's also the international RSPO. As Minister of Investment and Trade, we are always concerned about non-tariff barriers. They're using basically sustainability standards to protect their own markets. So today, access to certain markets might be dictated by the sustainability standards of that company. So to compete, they will say you don't meet the sustainability. So those are issues that we need to address. Of course, Malaysia as an open economy, we are parties to various bilateral and multilateral trade
agreements. In fact, we have 16 bilateral and multilateral agreements, so that shows how open we are. We have the CPTPP, we have the RCEP, we have, at the same time, we do engage. So when you talk about exports of agriculture, E&E, etc., what we want to make sure, that's why under the Industrial Master Plan, we need to make sure that we export things that have value add. We don't want to export, like say palm oil. We don't export the fruit, but we export refined oil. We export the end product. We go down midstream, even to all the way to downstream, because there is that the value is in terms of job opportunities, in terms of export value itself. So I think you mentioned data centers. Because like data centers, why are we supporting data centers? I mean, of course, Malaysia is blessed by the fact that we have adequate electricity, adequate energy, adequate water, right? And if you look at where our reserve margin was and is today, it is enough to sustain growth in the data center. But data center is like highway, right? The Plus Highway, for example, the highway that you use to travel across Malaysia. You also need data centers to be the power, the infrastructure that powers companies to come to Malaysia. You know, the kind of, especially the AI data centers that has the right computing power, then they attract many companies to come here. E&E, I mentioned 40% of our total exports. We have been here in this industry for 50 years. So we are benefiting from the geopolitics that's happening today, where there's a window, you know, what's happening between US and China, there's trade tensions, and it's also a tech war between two super economic powers. And Malaysia being a neutral country, and ASEAN also being a neutral region, naturally we have an opportunity here when companies are re-looking at their supply chain. They are looking, they're redesigning their supply chain. We want to make sure that their supply chain is more resilient, more secure. So where do they go? They look at ASEAN, and Malaysia is a country that, with the right kind of track record, 50 years in this sector, we should take advantage and leverage of the strength that we have within our E&E and semiconductor ecosystem. Automation is important, but now it's digitalization, right? Automation is also a challenge for SMEs. Because if you look at why are we pushing so hard for automation, it's about productivity. If in the country to grow in terms of GDP, it's not just about the growth of consumption, growth of investment, growth of government spending, or growth in trade, but also in growth in productivity. So here is why it's important to get our SMEs more involved in investing, doing R&D in automation, and not be too reliant on labor-intensive, what do you call it, organization. So those are the things that we are looking at. You touched on so many things, but I briefly touched on what are the focus areas given the topics that you raised just now. Thank you.
Thank you, Datuk.
Okay.
All right, let's go to mic 2.
Mic 2.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Datuk Seri. Datuk Seri, thank you so much for your insights.
Welcome.
I wanted to actually ask your opinion on this, like, given Malaysia's strategic position as a middle power amid global tech and geopolitical shifts, how do you see industrial diplomacy helping us strengthen key sectors like renewable energy and semiconductors? And with the economy evolving, what actions are being taken to ensure that young Malaysians have meaningful opportunities in this changing landscape? Thank you so much.
Thank you. So for young Malaysians, you live in a very, I guess, in terms of geopolitics, very dynamic times. You know, you are looking at a world that is no longer bipolar, in fact multipolar. Many things happening at the same time, much more complex than before. So for Malaysia, we need to navigate well, and for the youth as well, you need to see the trends and try and understand what's happening globally, so that every time there are challenges, there's always opportunities. So for Malaysia, we look at where we are today. You know, we've posted strong economic growth despite the slowdown in many global economies. We showed strong, if you look at the currency, look at inflation, unemployment, interest rate, we are heading towards the right direction, but we cannot be complacent because, you know, like I said, we are very much an open economy. What happens in the world surely will have an impact to Malaysia either way. So with the geopolitics that's happening, what can we do? To me, we can do three things. Number one, we need to ensure that we diversify. You know, we are very reliant on economies that are close to us. We have our traditional partners, US and China. China is our largest trading partner. In fact, China has been our largest trading partner for the last 15 consecutive years. And who's our biggest investor in the country? It's the United States. And second largest trading partner is the United States. And the second largest investor is China. So we need to slowly diversify, right? We need to expose our market, go to new markets, access new markets, talking to EU more, Africa, South Africa, basically South America. So these are markets, Middle East. So that's why we're negotiating FTAs with UAE, for example, and we just concluded that. That's strategy number one. Strategy number two, I think we must not forget about the strength of ASEAN, you know, ASEAN centrality. We are going to be chair of ASEAN next year. ASEAN is a group of 10 countries, and I mentioned just now, population 680 million. Half of ASEAN, or nearly half of ASEAN population is below the age of 30, right? We are the 5th largest economic bloc, right? What's the 5th largest economic bloc in terms of GDP? That's about 3.8 trillion US dollars, growing at 4 to 5%. And if we continue to grow at 4 to 5%, by the year 2030, we'll be the 4th largest economic bloc. So we also need to relook and refocus our efforts with our ASEAN neighbors. Our intra-trade with ASEAN is only 23%, right? So there is opportunity. Don't just look to China, US, and other part of the world. Look at our neighbors. So these are the second way, given the geopolitics. And finally, I think what you said just now is important. At the end of the day, there are other challenges as well. There's challenges of climate change, etc. So we need to be prepared. That's why the energy transition roadmap, even in the Industrial Master Plan, mission number 3 is about net zero, right? We need to be prepared. And we need to start investing, and this is where the youth is important, because I think your generation understands this, because you will face the heat in a way if we don't do anything today, right? Because that plan is a long-term plan. You know, even the net zero target for Malaysia is by 2050. In fact, before this was as early as 2050, but people say as early as 2050 can mean 2060, 2070. So we have moved the target to by 2050. So it's another 25 years to go. So you all in this room will need to be part of that. We need to make sure your interests are aligned, because you are the ones who are going to execute this. Of course, any plans must be a dynamic plan. It's not a static plan, so it will evolve, it will change based on circumstances. So you don't want to be too static as well. So I think those are the three things that is what we need to do, and where you all have to play a role as well to ensure, because it is at the end of the day going to be the ones that decides Malaysia's future and growth trajectory. Thank you.
Right, thank you so much, Datuk Seri, for such an interactive and engaging session. And I hope the youth in here and also the youth... And the youth in here can take lessons and advice from Datuk Seri on how we need to be prepared to face this economic shift to the new economy, where digital economy and green economy is concerned. I could kindly ask Datuk Seri to remain on stage. Now I'd like to invite Syed and Awanina to give out a token of appreciation. With the Kumpul shuttle, The shuttle is ready outside. The last shuttle is ready outside to take you. So please take note of that. Now hang tight everyone. No event would be complete without a photo. Let's invite Datuk Seri to join us on the floor for a photo session with all our participants. Okay everyone, please rise so we can all be in the picture.
Start. It's time to try.